This will sound very strange, but the day the music died, when in 1959 rock and roll musicians Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and the Big Bopper died in a plane crash, an event that later became known as the day the music died, after the singer-songwriter Don McLean referred to it as such in his American Pie song. This plane crash and the day the music died is a prophecy that is predicting that NASA's helicopter on the planet Mars will crash on November 11th, 2022. Just days before it is predicted that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash due to a bird strike in St. Louis on November 26th, 2022. The post date that this video is posted proves that this prediction is made ahead of time, as well as does this timestamped email by Google and this forensic notes document. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. This video is an extremely profound and interesting video and is one of the most important videos on this channel. The Day the Music Died. The Day the Music Died is the chorus of a song named American Pie, written and sung by Don McLean in 1971. It is a song about the day in February of 1959 when American rock and roll musicians Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and the Big Bopper, J.P. Richardson, were killed in a plane crash in Iowa. It is a major event in American history. It occurred in the early days of rock and roll, and these three musicians were considered to be, at the time, a very important part of the American rock and roll music scene and American culture. This is why the nation went into mourning. The nation mourned the death of these musicians. The 60th word in Strong's Greek New Testament Bible Concordance is the word meaning mourning. The date they died, the date of this plane crash, was the date February 3rd in 1959. 60 years exactly after this is this date 2-3 February 3rd in 2019. This is a major connection. To begin explaining it, let's begin with the prophetic significance and relevance of the date 2-3. Which hints at 2-3. February 3rd hints at 2-3, which in turn hints at the number 23. The number 23 in the Bible is symbolism for judgment. The 23rd word in Strong's Greek New Testament Concordance is a word meaning indignant, to be very displeased, moved to indignation. It is the 9th prime number, and from the Bible, the number 9 symbolizes God's judgment, and in God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, the number 9 is the most important number. And God pairs the numbers 9 and 23 together frequently to confirm the signs and connections and to reveal the identity of the Antichrist, the basketball president that wore jersey number 23 when he played basketball in high school and became president in 2009. Also, 2-3 in itself hints at when Jesus said to Peter that the rooster would crow twice before he would deny him 3 times. In the end times, period of great tribulation and God's wrath, the faith of God's people will be tested as to whether or not they will deny Jesus. This is also why the number 23 is associated with the Antichrist, the basketball president that wore jersey number 23. What is further confirmation of this, by the way, is that although not shown in this video, it will be explained in part 2 of the Day the Music Died video. There'll be 2 parts. There's another completely separate trail of signs that's also astounding and profound. God has used 726 months connections from prophetic signs in the late 1950s. And exactly 726 months after this is the date 8-3, August 3rd in 2019, and the El Paso shooting in which 23 people were killed and 23 people were injured. The day after that was another shooting in which 9 people were killed and 17 people were injured, which hinted at the president from 2009 until 2017. Also on that 8/3 date in 2019, when 23 people were killed and 23 people were injured, it was the GOAT of football's 42nd birthday. The number 42 is Antichrist symbolism in the Bible, as is GOAT. In pop culture, GOAT is greatest of all time, and the two GOATs of basketball, Michael Jordan and LeBron James, both also wore jersey number 23, just like the GOAT Antichrist, the basketball president, that wore jersey 23 when he played basketball in high school. But that is a whole other story. But what I meant to do there was to confirm the prophetic relevance of this date 2-3, symbolizing the number 23. And that's why it is exactly 60 years, which hints at mourning, which is what the nation did on this date. It is exactly 60 years to this date of 2-3, which is also hinting at the number 23, and another instance of mourning. On this day, Kamala Harris, who at the time was the senator from California, tweeted a mourning tweet. She was mourning with other people from California over a plane crash, a prophetic plane crash. It's an amazing plane crash. There was this plane, a private plane that crashed into the residential neighborhood of Yorba Linda, California, which is the city or the place of the presidential library of Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon was the only president to use the 25th Amendment when he appointed his vice president, Gerald Ford, after his prior vice president resigned due to a scandal, Spiro Agnew. President Ford was the only president to never have been elected vice president or president. He was appointed instead. Just like how Barack Obama, when he becomes president again later this year, he will be appointed instead of elected. Thus, he will overcome the 22nd Amendment's restriction on someone being elected to the office more than twice. He will be appointed instead. And this is why on this same day, Harrison Ford was also a prophetic sign. Harrison Ford starred in the big main commercial of the Super Bowl, and Super Bowls are known for their commercials. And in this commercial, it regarded a blackout. That's why exactly 23 weeks later, we have this extremely prophetic signs, plural. There were so many involved, contained in this, which was the Manhattan blackout. And that's connecting to this commercial, which was about a blackout. The Amazon commercial was about a blackout that was worldwide. And it started from space, and it's about the space station causing a blackout, and there will be a coronal mass ejection hit from the sun that will cause massive power outage blackouts in September this year. And that's what this Manhattan blackout was, one of the things it was pointing to. For one thing, it was the day of Manhattanhenge. It occurred during the blackout. And in Genesis 1:14, God says that the lights in the sky are for prophetic signs. The two brightest lights in the sky are the sun and the moon. And on this day, Manhattanhenge is known as the day that occurs twice in a year, when the sun sets perfectly in between the canyon walls of the skyscrapers of Manhattan. And so also on this day was the Hurricane Barry that hit the Gulf Coast, and it was known for its power outage blackouts. In Barack Obama's autobiography, he says that changing his name from Barry to Barack symbolizes who he is today. This book also contains a prophetic dream that reveals that he is the Antichrist, although it seems that he doesn't know this. But that's what his dream reveals. The book Dreams from My Father. So anyway, this exact 23 weeks for one thing is almost exactly 44% of a year, and God pairs the numbers 23 and 44 together to confirm the signs and connections and to reveal the identity of the Antichrist, the 44th president, the basketball president that wore jersey number 23. And so this is the prophetic significance. Also, this was the 77th birthday of Harrison Ford. And Harrison Ford was born in Chicago, and God uses the city Chicago to point to the president who was from Chicago. Harrison Ford turned 77, and this was exactly on this day, the 42nd anniversary of the 1977 infamous blackout in New York City that lasted over 9 hours and 9 million people without power and lasted over 24 hours or around 24 hours. But it was also on July 13th in 1977, 42 years exactly before this date. In fact, it's an exact 110 minutes before this blackout started. So 110 is the number of stories of the Twin Towers on 9/11, and that's just going off on too much of a tangent. But the 1977 blackout, and again, Ford turned 77 on this day, that blackout was caused due to a perfect storm of lightning strikes that struck two substations many miles apart and destroyed or knocked them out, knocking all of the power out that went into Manhattan or New York City. And the odds of that are astronomical, and it was a sign from God. It was done by God. There's no way that could have happened without God. But it was a lightning sign. And I'll explain why that's important in a second. Okay? Because this number here, 1,299, in Strong's Hebrew Old Testament concordance is the word for lightning. And the word for lightning is barak. And so I'll explain more in a second, but that's why this connects to lightning, and it is confirmation of this, because this number of days right here is the word for high place. The 1,116th word in Strong's Hebrew Old Testament concordance is the word for high place. And in the Bible, the high place is a metaphor for heaven. Lucifer in Isaiah chapter 14 is said to have fallen from the high place, a metaphor for heaven. Also, the Jews would conduct their false idolatrous worship on the tops of mountains, and the euphemism for that in the Bible is the high places. Anyway, Jesus said he saw Satan falling like lightning from heaven. And the word for high place is Bama. In the language Jesus would have spoken, Aramaic, the word for from is O. Lightning from heaven is in Hebrew, Barak Obama. And that is amazing, and that's why this is necessary to explain how it connects to the lightning blackout in 1977. And also more confirmation of that is that 42 years is hinting at 42 months, which is mentioned 7 times in Bible prophecy as being the length of time of the Antichrist's rule. It is only symbolic, however. We are already inside the final 42 months. But that's why the 42 years. But also, Harrison Ford's Star Wars career spanned 42 years. The original Star Wars was released in 1977, just prior to the New York City blackout, and the final Star Wars movie that Harrison Ford was in 2019. And so that's why the 42 years is confirmation of this connection between his 77th birthday and this sign, the blackout commercial starring Harrison Ford as himself in this Super Bowl commercial. All right, now, this day here was in turn another 23 weeks to the day of the Harrison Butker double doink prophetic sign with the score at 23 in Chicago from the 23-yard line. And that is communicating the double doink presidency of Barack Obama. But that's also another story which I won't go off into a tangent explaining, but that confirms the 23 weeks here that connects to this date 2-3, which hints at 23. And there were a multitude of 2-3 pairings in the Super Bowl itself. But also, on the day of the Super Bowl, a football team from Australia, an Australian football team, as tongue-in-cheek, did a promotion around Atlanta, which is where the Super Bowl was played. They put up billboards all over the city saying that they were the champions of football. It was a tongue-in-cheek because, of course, it's Australian football. But they were the champions, I suppose, that year, and so they did that. And the thing is that the way I discovered this is because I just had a hunch that there would be a prophetic sign involving roosters in connection with this Super Bowl. Because Peter, before the rooster crowed twice, Peter denied Jesus 3 times. And that's what the date 2-3 is hinting at. Well, sure enough, this Australian football team is named Roosters, the Sydney Roosters. So that was jaw-dropping when I discovered that. So also, this date 2-3 is exactly 2,300 days. This Super Bowl was played between the GOAT of football. A GOAT in the Bible is Antichrist symbolism, and in pop culture, GOAT is greatest of all time. Tom Brady, the GOAT of football, played the Rams. And so it was the Rams versus GOAT Super Bowl, and in Daniel chapter 8 in the Bible is a prophecy of the GOAT versus the Ram. And it is about the Antichrist, and it involves the central, most important part of that prophecy is the 2,300 days mentioned in that prophecy. In fact, that prophecy is regarding the battle between the Greeks and the Persians, because the archangel Gabriel comes and explains the vision that Daniel has and tells him that the goat is Alexander the Great and the ram is Persia, and that's what the vision of the battle between the goat and the ram symbolizes. And the most important battle in Western civilization history was when the Greeks defeated the Persians in 334 BC. Well, there are 3 other instances in the Bible in which days symbolize years in prophecy, including in Ezekiel and the book of Numbers. And what I mean by that is that 3 instances in the Bible, God says that a certain number of days symbolizes a number of years. It's straight up saying that in the text. These certain number of days symbolize a certain number of years. Straight up says that in the text. And so Bible prophecy followers are quite familiar with what is called the day for a year symbolism rule in Bible prophecy. And when we add 2,300 years to 334 BC, we get 1967, which is beyond words amazing, because the prophecy says that after the 2,300 years, the sanctuary, the Jewish temple, would be restored to its rightful state. You can read that for yourselves. It is 100% rock solid, indisputable proof that the Bible is the Word of God, because in 1967 was the first time since Daniel, which was 600 years BC, that Jews had self-rule over the Temple Mount and the Temple. The Temple Mount in Jerusalem, East Jerusalem. It was a result of the 6-Day War. Israel expanded its territory and recaptured the Temple Mount. And so the sanctuary was restored to its rightful state, as it says in that prophecy. And the main theme of Bible prophecy in the Old Testament, one of them is the restoration of Israel at the end of the age. And so anyway, that's why the 2,300 days. Now, if we subtract 2,300 days from this 2-3 date, which is hinting at the number 23, we get the 23rd anniversary of the 1989 World Series earthquake, which was a major prophetic sign, which is explained in other videos. So we have the 23 years connection and then the 2,300 days connection. And on this 23rd anniversary, the World Series earthquake was a coincidence because it was the World Series played between the 2 teams that are from the Bay Area, the Oakland Athletics and the San Francisco Giants. And so what a coincidence that right as the Game 3 of the World Series was beginning, at the opening of the broadcast, live, the first ever live major earthquake to be captured on live television all over the Bay Area, and looked at through the blimp, the Goodyear blimp that just happened to be in the air because they're in the air for sports games. And so it was designed by God, in other words. And anyway, that whole earthquake was about the Bay Area. And one of the things about it was the collapse of the segment of the bridge that connected the 2 cities. the Bay Bridge. And the bridge is symbolism for the bridge between man and God, which is Jesus Christ. That's why this earthquake, this 6.9 earthquake, was centered 10 miles outside of Santa Cruz, California, in the Santa Cruz Mountains. And Santa Cruz is Spanish for Holy Cross. Jesus is the cross, the bridge. The cross is the bridge between man and God. And so, anyway, on the 23rd anniversary was the day that was national news of a fireball that flew at low altitude over the Bay Area. What an amazing sign that was. And again, God says the lights in the sky are for prophetic signs. All right, so we've really established this end of the diagram, and I've explained the how Barack Obama's name in Hebrew means lightning from heaven. So I've explained these connections, and I've explained why lightning is important because of the lightning blackout in 1977. All right, so if we add this number of days, which is again the word Bama, which means high place, heaven, we get the day that the GOAT, greatest of all time, GOAT is Antichrist symbolism, of baseball broadcasting died. This is an amazing sign that is explained in amazing detail in the absolute must-watch videos that are explaining the prediction for this video. But I've made 3 videos before this. There's a video series explaining the predicted date that NASA's helicopter will crash on the red planet Mars. And so this is explained, so I won't explain it here. But the GOAT of baseball broadcasting, who broadcasted for a record 67 years for the Los Angeles Dodgers, he is known for having a son that died in a helicopter crash. So all of the relevance of that will be explained. It's truly amazing. Make sure you watch those videos. That's specifically explained in part 2 of the 3 videos. And it's also explained the relevance of this connection, 23 days, but we've already harped a lot on the significance of 23, so you get the idea here. 23 days, the basketball president, the GOAT, Antichrist, wore jersey number 23, which gets us to August 25th. All right, now in the other videos, it is explained how this is all connecting also not only to the day that NASA's helicopter will crash, but also the day that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash due to a bird strike on November 3rd. And in fact, the helicopter crash hints at that. It is symbolism for it. The crash of NASA's helicopter on the red planet Mars, which is Antichrist symbolism, is symbolism for when Jesus said he saw Satan falling like lightning from heaven, which is what will be the case with Kamala Harris's plane crash as well, as she will be replaced by Barack Obama, the Antichrist. So her death in a plane crash will lead to the rise of the Antichrist, which is why her death in a plane crash will symbolize when Jesus said he saw Satan falling like lightning from heaven. And this is why we have this astounding Barack Obama equation. Barack meaning lightning, Obama high place, O from in Aramaic. Barack Obama, lightning from heaven. Anyway, this connects with 23 days and 90 days. It connects, the death of the GOAT of baseball broadcasting connects with 90 days, which hints at the number 9, and God pairs the numbers 9 and 23 together to confirm the signs and connections, as the basketball president that wore jersey 23 became president in 2009. And so that confirms these connections. And so it's 23 days to this sign here, which is explained in the other NASA helicopter videos, which is the NASA photo of the day of a unique image of the moon and the transit of China's space station across the image of the moon. And China is the red dragon, is symbolism for the red dragon, and the red dragon is symbolism for the Antichrist in the book of Revelation. And the red dragon is thrown down from heaven to earth, hence, and with his angels, hence why the GOAT of baseball broadcasting broadcasted with the Los Angeles Dodgers, the Los Angeles means angels, and on and on. And so that's what will be symbolized also is the book of Revelation chapter 12, when the red dragon is thrown down from heaven to earth along with his angels. That's also symbolism for when Jesus said he saw Satan falling like lightning from heaven, which will be symbolized with these two crashes, the crash of NASA's helicopter and Kamala Harris in a plane crash. All right, and so that's why, by the way, this was amazing, because Harrison, is hinting at Harris and Ford, the president that was never elected, either vice president or president. And Harrison Ford's two names hint at two presidents. His first name, Harrison, is hinting at Benjamin Harrison, the 23rd president, which is why the 23 is here. And the 22nd president, Grover Cleveland, was the only president to serve non-consecutive terms, having skipped the 23rd presidency. And that's what's being hinted at with the name Harrison, because Barack Obama will also serve non-consecutive terms. And that's why the plane crashes, because that is how Barack Obama will become president again, is through this plane crash and the replacement of Kamala Harris. And so, in other words, this is absolutely astounding. This diagram is mind-blowing. This diagram, there are no words, because here we have in this diagram, as I've just demonstrated, the two numbers that communicate lightning from heaven, and Barack Obama's name is lightning from heaven. And this connects to the day of this sign, which will be the crash of NASA's helicopter on Mars, which will be Antichrist symbolism, because the planet Mars, the red planet Mars, is Antichrist symbolism. And it will symbolize, for one thing, also Revelation chapter 12, which, by the way, is what Vin Scully symbolizes in the Dodgers, etc. But that's explained in the video. It will symbolize Revelation chapter 12 when it says that Archangel Michael throws down the red dragon along with his angels to earth. And so that's what also will be symbolized when the helicopter falls to earth. Vin Scully's son that died in a helicopter crash is named Michael. Okay, so, and then this will again be a sign that is pointing to the day that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash on November 3rd, 2022. And thus will be the door through which the Antichrist, the GOAT Antichrist, that wore jersey number 23, will rise to power and become president again, and Antichrist. Okay, one correction here. This date, August 25th, is 70 days before the day that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash. And as is explained in the other videos, this date here is also 7 times 7 days after the date 7/7, July 7th, and the epic explosion of a pipeline, a gas pipeline at Harris County in Texas, and on and on. And the 90 days from the death of the GOAT of baseball broadcasting connects to the day that NASA's helicopter will crash on October 31st. And again, Vin Scully, the GOAT of baseball broadcasting, is known for having a son that died in a helicopter crash. And on that note, his son is named Michael. His son's name was Michael. And in Revelation chapter 12, it is the Archangel Michael that throws down the red dragon from heaven to earth. And on that note, it has also been learned through this and other signs that helicopters symbolize the red dragon, or they symbolize the dragon through their tails and their wings. It's interesting. It needs more explanation, and you'll see that explanation in the other videos, that these helicopter signs are actually symbolism for the dragon. And the song, The Day the Music Died, is Antichrist. It is Antichrist symbolism. When people chant this song, they are chanting at the demise and death of America. Unconsciously, spiritually, it is Antichrist. And so here we can see how God has used this song, The Day the Music Died, and the day these musicians died in a plane crash, to ultimately point to the death of America and the rise of the Antichrist. This date here connects with 70 days, as explained in the other videos, to October 31st, and as explained in the amazing and important and must-watch Part 1 of the helicopter video series, which is the Harrison Ford helicopter crash prophecy video. October 31st connects with 11 days to the date 11/11 and the day it is predicted that NASA's helicopter will crash on the red planet Mars. And from the day of the death of the GOAT of baseball broadcasting, who is known for having a son that died in a helicopter crash, whose name is Michael, It is 90 days to October 31st, followed by 11 days to the date 11/11, the date it is predicted that NASA's helicopter will crash. And therefore this 90 days and 11 days pairs together and confirms the signs and connections, and obviously points to 9/11 as 9/11 symbolism. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. The New Age or New Spirituality or Consciousness religion is evil deception from Satan. There is a spiritual reality behind the material world that we see. The wages for sin is death. Sin means to miss the mark. No one is good, all have sinned. Because of sin, people are captives of the ruler of this world, Satan. People's souls belong to Satan, whose power over people is death. God took the form of a man, Jesus Christ, and paid the ransom that is owed to the ruler of this world. Through Christ's death and resurrection, he defeated sin and he overcame Satan's power in death. It is through Christ and his Spirit that it is possible for everyone to be forgiven of their sin, and we can have eternal life if we choose it. We can choose to follow Jesus out of captivity from sin and Satan, or we can choose to reject this and remain a slave to this world, sin, and to Satan. If one rejects Jesus Christ, after they die, they will pay the price for their sin in hell, and then they will die the second death, and their soul will cease to exist. Believing in Christ means much more than simple intellectual agreement. It means to repent of sin and completely commit one's life and become a willing slave to Jesus and his kingdom. Jesus said we need to be born again, which implies a death of the self and a death to this world. Believing in Jesus implies living out one's faith through taking action that typically involves risk and sacrifice. This demonstration of faith through action is what it means to have faith and to believe in Jesus. Some Christians will tell you otherwise, but they are deceived and they ignore countless passages in the Bible. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. It is essential that everyone immediately read the homepage of my website, TrumpPrediction.com.